All right, I'll let that one go there.
Go ahead, Rick.
A question. You were talking about how you talked to your grandmother about her philosophical view behind being in the kitchen. At what age did you come to a point where you realized that her stance was wrong? And what influenced you to take it to that level?
In fact, I grew up with my grandparents till I was about 6. I think I was 5. My grandmother speaking to me, saying that when in fact, she would tell me my grandmother was illiterate. She and we grew up in the islands. And the thing was, when I got married, I'm supposed to marry a woman like her who grew up in the kitchen, blah blah blah. I said to her, "Is that all you wanted in life?" I thought I was crazy at 5 years old. But yeah, I was 5 or 6, about 5, 6 years old.
So what motivated you? I mean, there had
I
to be
don't know.
something to take you there.
Because until I moved in with my parents, and my mom was working, and she stopped working when my dad finished medical school. But I was about 5 or 6, and even in my adulthood, when I was out and about, her thing was you need to marry a woman in the kitchen, blah blah blah, this and that. But she saw nothing wrong with that. Do I have a problem with women who likes to be at home? And
Right.
but do I want her different? I don't. Whatever she wants, I don't care. She whatever she does anyway.
Well, you'd be a leader if you told her to go out
I
and
sure
do it.
would. If not, paradoxically, yeah, I would. But she tells me what. But you raised a good point. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm reading into your question. Is it that human beings must constantly see difference, be exposed to difference, and that's the only way they can start to configure their own mentality? Am I right into your question?
Because
Some
we
will
the same thing
argue, yes. As a phenomenologist, I can't do that. I can't make that argument and still be a phenomenologist. Simply because at what point does self-reflectivity develop? And that self-reflectivity develop at 2, the children start, whereas we don't know when self-reflective, we cannot say scientifically for sure or philosophically for sure. All I can do is assume the position of self-reflectivity in boys. And I remember having philosophical discussions with my son at 4 and 5 years old, and some people, they can't handle it, but we did. So
I believe that I did the same with my daughter.
So it's hard to
dumb
say.
yourself down to children.
Exactly.
To bring them up.
It becomes the thing is student. Whereas adults will have a problem picking up on contradictions, young children they jump on contradictions in a heartbeat, which is why a lot of young people are moving away from the church because they see the hypocrisy in the church. My wife's church is experiencing that. Young people refuse to go to church because of the hypocrisy. My son, I think I was talking to one of my 10-year-old, came to me asking me, "Dad, is it okay to have sex at 10, etc., etc.? Will God, punish me, this and that?" I won't go to the discussion we had, but I believe sexuality is a natural thing, and children are inquisitive. You have to be honest with children. And I was honest with my son.
Right.
But yeah, children pick up on hypocrisy, and that's, in fact, we do children more of a harm when we try to tell them what they should believe, as opposed to giving them what they should or be inquiring about.
Could that be interpreted as a laissez-faire leadership of a child?
There's no such thing. That's an oxymoron, right?
I mean, exactly.
Even democracy as we define it, Republican democracy is a oxymoron. You know what I'm saying? How can you see with elected officials? Everybody should represent themselves.
True, but boys do grow up, wherever it happens, we still recognize as history and guide them and give them experiences and try to win this point.
Harping on this side. You speak for people.
No, I'm saying as in humanity, historically, within humanity we guide are smaller, generally speaking,
Which one do you?
Exposing is put them in the environment. You know, you kind of.
Yeah, I'd rather expose them and put them in the environment and let them explore than me telling them what to do and say.
More.
Because that's what my parents did. That's probably why I'm biased. I don't know.
It seems like I'm semantically trying to bend that word leadership into life.
Yeah, I see that.
Pretty close though. Pretty close.
You
All right.
want the leadership. It must be a product. It's our need to hold on to God through leadership.
I just had one question. I
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
know if you believe that we can exist in society without sociological sanctions or some type of rules, or do you think that we could exist productive in society without some type of sanctions?
It's a question. I wanted to say, why shouldn't we? If we set up society, set up reason and rationality, we can have a problem. One of the theories that come out of it is just that in fact, the reason why we have so much many criminals, because we have so many laws, right? Then you can realize, or you become aware of your criminality. Yeah, everything comes against the law, blah, blah, blah. Which is the rule of law that supposedly comes out of the Enlightenment. But I do believe that we can have a more productive society with, it's interesting. There's if you're interested in this, there's a lady, even though she's a conservative Republican, we would consider her, Anne Rand, who wrote around the 1950s and 60s. That's her position, that the only role that government should play is not to play a role, not to tell me what I can do. All their job is simply to build roads. Do I subscribe to that? Yes, to some extent I do. I believe if there is a God, his greatest gift was when we ate from the fruit of knowledge, and we have wisdom to be God-like on earth. Now we've chosen not to, and we've given our authorities to other people. But I do believe we can have a more productive society without rules, yes.
Okay, I know you were, I don't know if I understood, I know you were talking about rationality and choices. That it could be possible, or don't you think we're connected?
Yeah, they are.
Because from like, as a child, from the experiences that I have as a child, I rationalize those experiences, and that's how I make my choices. So do you think that I would be able to grow in existence without taking experiences, what I've learned from other people or who I've been around? In a sense, do you think that that's leadership?
You can. You watch Gregory House,
Yeah.
make a distinction between rationalization man and rational man. We make that distinction for a reason. You're right. You can choose to pick and choose from watching others. That's a choice you choose to make. Or you can choose simply to reflect on self and whatever. I do. I choose, if there are leaders that I would look to, Fidel Castro, Malcolm X, and my father.
So those are leaders.
So
to you.
Yeah, you can make that choice, as I have made that choice to look to them. Now, do I follow them blindly? Of course not. And do I view them? I think Fidel Castro is bad, not in the sense that just the fact that he hasn't taken the leap that I have. I think my father also has not taken the leap. But those are the influences I have. Remember I said we always exist, pure existence and existence with others. And all others tell us this is how we should be. Fidel Castro says this is how we should be. It's communism. As much as I respect him as a man, I have a problem with that. My father, as much as I respect him as a man, I have a problem with his choice of existence. Malcolm X, as much as I respect and believe you, if you ever read the autobiography of Malcolm X comes to the same conclusion, especially after his pilgrimage to Mecca, that we must not blindly accept leaders, but constantly be in reflection about existence, about others' existence, my existence, to formulate my own existence. But do we blindly accept leadership? No, I have a problem with that. I have a problem.
So, in order to create this perfect world with no laws,